All right, welcome everyone. Looks like we're kind of settled, so let's get started. My name is Sandy Cedar. I'm Assistant City Manager for the City of Longmont. I'm also your facilitator for the evening. And I have not facilitated a meeting in the round in a while, but I think this will be a great conversation today. I want to make sure that everybody has one of these 3-page sheets. This is the information that we're going to present based on the study that Sarah has done around economics, as well as all the questions that we'll be asking as part of the Fishbowl today. So if you don't have one of these, also if you haven't signed up, you don't have to sign up, but if you'd like to receive updates on this process, please do so, because that's how we're going to make sure everybody knows what's going on. Also, the overflow room is available. That's room A if you're interested in a more private viewing of what's happening tonight. Yeah, no, not you guys. Nice try, council members. It's not going to work. Yes. There was some over by Harold as well. Are there still some copies? Just one? They're making a few more. Okay.
Sandy, they're making more.
They're making a few more. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And feel free to share with your neighbor. That's okay also. All right, well, welcome to the Fishbowl conversation on minimum wage. We have a lot of information that we're going to be sharing today. The way that this is going to work, like I said, the overflow room is open. Longmont Public Media is recording and live streaming, so thanks. Let's give a round of applause for our LPM partners. As well as the microphones, which we're going to be sharing here in a minute as well. So my thanks to LPM for helping us with this today. We also have several staff members that are around, and you can ask them questions as well. If you're a staff member with the city, would you raise your hand real quick? Yeah. Thank you. Much appreciated. Appreciate all of your support. And if you're hungry, we have snacks, because that's really important. Feel free to get up. This is not a classroom. I know we have a few teachers in the Fishbowl, but this is not a classroom. You do not need to raise your hand to go to the bathroom or to get a snack. You're welcome just to get up and take care of yourself if you need a breath of air, or you need a snack, or you need a restroom. There are restrooms right outside of this door and also on your way back to the front of the senior center. So right through that door back there. Valerie, raise your hand for a second. With that door back there, if you just walk right out there, there are restrooms right there. So please take care of yourself today during the conversation. So most people should have a handout or one that's close by. I'm going to invite Sarah DeValle to be able to talk a little bit about some of the data that we had, and then we're going to follow the Fishbowl facilitation on the last page. Who we have in the Fishbowl right now are folks that are speaking as either minimum wage earners or on behalf of minimum wage earners. And then once we have our conversation there, then we're going to take a moment and swap out for business owners. So thank you all for being here. This is a critical subject for the City Council, and they may have lots of questions for you. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So Sarah, would you mind introducing yourself and kind of going through just the data very quickly that's on these sheets?
Thank you, Sandy. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah DeValle. I'm a budget analyst with the City of Longmont. And on the sheets in front of you, there are kind of three main takeaways from the data analysis that we wanted to highlight for the conversation tonight. The first one, that's that first graph that's on the first page. It shows how many people in different occupation groups would be impacted at different levels of a minimum wage change. So when we say impacted, this does just count the number of people in those occupation groups that are currently making below that minimum wage for that color. So each of those clusters of bars is an occupation group, so a group of positions that are very similar to each other in nature, and those are labeled below the clusters. And then each bar within those clusters represents a different minimum wage scenario. So on the leftmost side, we have the current Colorado minimum wage of $14.81. And as we move progressively to the right, that minimum wage scenario increases. So the next one is $15 an hour, then looking at $16.57, which is the current Boulder County unincorporated minimum wage. Then we looked at $18 an hour, $20 an hour, and $25 an hour. And as you can see, each of those clusters of bars does spike up at $25 an hour. So that's how you can kind of identify which bar is which. The very rightmost bar is for $15.25 an hour. And that is what our assumption of potentially natural wage growth between 2025 and 2026 would be, assuming a 3% inflation rate. So what we can take away from this graph is that there are 5 main groups that would have the most number of people impacted by a minimum wage shift. And so that is our food preparation and serving related occupations, office and administrative support occupations, production occupations, sales and related, so that's retail, and transportation and material moving. And the top 2 groups that would be most impacted of those 5 would be the food preparation and serving, so that's restaurants, and sales and related, so that's mostly retail. The second key takeaway from the data analysis is on the second page. It's that first graph. And instead of looking at just the numbers of people, this graph looks at the percentage of the Longmont workforce. Instead of having clusters of bars here, we have one bar that represents each minimum wage scenario that was reviewed in this analysis. And the different colors stacked within those bars are the different occupation groups. So in this one, we did put the 5 topmost impacted occupation groups as separate colors, and all other groups are in that bottom bar, that darkest blue. And so as you can see, as we consider higher minimum wages, we can expect for a larger percentage of the Longmont workforce to be impacted at any level as you go up. The last data takeaway that is included in the sheets that you have in front of you are on the bottom of the second page. And this represents how we might expect for people's public benefits, if they're currently receiving them, to potentially be impacted if they were to make a higher minimum wage. And so this table represents 3 different household situations. The first one is one working adult. The second one is one working adult and 2 children. And the third is 2 working adults and 2 children. And this is because each of these public benefit programs has different eligibility requirements based on the household makeup. And so the programs listed are the programs that they might be eligible for at the current minimum wage in Longmont, which matches the state minimum wage of $14.81 an hour. And as we move down the table, it shows different minimum wage scenarios that we considered. And if someone would lose their eligibility to that program, if they were working full-time and making that wage level, that program is crossed out in the table. So if you see a program that is crossed out in that table, that means that someone working full-time in that household structure at that wage level would no longer be eligible for that program. And that's the data takeaways.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's give a round of applause for Sarah on the data information. Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to ask questions at this point. This is the data that the City Council received, and then we'll talk a little bit about it in the circle for sure. So what exactly are we doing here in the first place? Well, in 2019, the state legislature allowed municipalities to be able to change their minimum wage. They couldn't go any lower than the state minimum, but they could go higher. Several municipalities decided to do that, including the City and County of Denver, the City of Edgewater, most recently City of Boulder, and Boulder County, unincorporated Boulder County. And so as part of the consortium of cities, Boulder County asked the City of Longmont and other surrounding municipalities if we would also raise the minimum wage. So we worked together as a consortium to try to do some surveying and focus groups. We have a couple of members from the City of Lafayette that are continuing this, so thanks, Alex, and hello, council member, that'll be joining us as part of this conversation. And what we ended up was that the City Council declined to change the minimum wage in 2024 because they felt that they needed more information. So Sarah provided the information and some more information than you just saw right here. And the council made a motion to have a fishbowl conversation with folks that would be most impacted. Well, what the heck's a fishbowl? Well, it looks like this. A fishbowl is a facilitation technique where the city council gets to sit with people who will be most impacted by changes in the minimum wage and have a conversation. So if you look at the last page of your handout, you'll see not only definition of the fishbowl, but also some questions that we'll be asking. Some for folks who will be impacted positively by minimum wage, and then we'll also be speaking with business owners to be able to share their experiences too. So we're going to do this in 2 rounds. The first round in this fishbowl, they're going to have the conversation, Everyone else is going to be able to observe what's happening. You may also want to weigh in. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Kimberly McKee to talk about how you can weigh in if you are outside of the Fishbowl.
Thank you. We had a number of people who asked, how could they also participate in this conversation? So we put together what's called a Mentimeter. You'll see a QR code on your handout. So if you click that with a phone, you will get onto what's called a Mentimeter. And here's how I'm going to use it just so everyone is super clear. When Sandy starts for about 2 to 3 minutes, I'm going to have the first question, which is just kind of for you to identify kind of who you are in the room. You don't have to put your name or anything, but there's a question around that. Then for 5 minutes, I'm going to have the first question, which is basically ask, what are the advantages to an increased localized minimum wage? 5 minutes after that, I'll go to the next slide, which is what are the unintended consequences of this? And then 5 minutes after that, it will just be open-ended for you to put in your comments, your thoughts, or your questions, and we will pass on all of that information to Sandy for City Council to consider.
Can you just reiterate that the QR code on the third page, not the QR code on the third?
Yes, that's a great point. It's the QR code on the third page. The QR code that's on the first page is a quick link if you want to watch the City Council's discussion of this so far. So, yeah. So, Francie, are you saying that that's not working? It should have just a thumbs
It should just
up.
say
It should be
Longmont
just
City
a-
Council minimum wage Fishbowl.
And then a thumbs up. Okay, if you do not have a smartphone, please come on over to Francie. We have a couple tablets that you can use as well. So if you need one, she's got some tablets over here that you can use if you don't have a smartphone with you. Yes, it's being recorded and live streamed. Yeah, thanks to our partners at Longmont Public Media. Which is a good point. There are 2 giant cameras, so just so you know. Okay, so the Fishbowl is where the City Council gets to ask questions. We'll have some facilitated questions, and I'll sit in the Fishbowl with everyone and ask the questions that the Council had already wanted to start with. But then it really is a discussion so that the City Council, by the end of tonight, hopefully has all of the information that they need to be able to make a decision on a local minimum wage for 2026. That's the goal for today. I do have some ground rules also on page 3, just because there's a lot of folks here, and I appreciate that. There's also some ground rules around. I want to make sure that people feel safe to speak their truth, that people are listening to understand each other's point of views. This is an emotional topic for lots of people, and we recognize that and appreciate that. Be respectful of different views. Take turns sharing perspectives. Ask thoughtful questions. And I'm asking the audience to hold applause and comments. This is not an easy place to be sitting here with the City Council in the middle of this circle. And so I appreciate you helping me to make it a safe space for everybody who's here. All right. Any questions from anyone inside the Fishbowl? Matthew?
Just a clarifying question on the data. Was that for tipped or untipped workers? And does any of the data that's here apply to tipped?
The data did not differentiate whether a worker was tipped or untipped.
But that's going to be one of the questions we ask, as you can see on page 3. Okay, we know where the restrooms are. We know where the snacks are. We're going to spend about 15 minutes in this first round of conversation, and then we'll kind of do a check-in and see how we're doing. I'll go ahead and give this to Claudia to start. Okay, for those of you in the Fishbowl, I'm wondering if you can just introduce yourself and just what your name is and who you're representing today. Unfortunately, although we did a lot of outreach to folks who make minimum wage, most people were unable to join us. So we have people that are working with folks that make minimum wage to be able to help offer the perspective. So Claudia, I'll start with you. If you can just pass around your microphone, that'd be great.
Thank you. My name is Claudia Orona, and I work for the City of Longmont, representing the children, youth, and families here in Longmont. And my role is I'm a youth program specialist, and I also work with families, offering parenting classes here in Longmont. And I work with a lot of families that are really in need of, having just support everywhere. So, thank you.
Matthew Popkin, Longmont City Council.
Hi, I'm Joanne Owen. I live in Firestone. I work for St. Vrain Valley Transportation, but I'm not representing St. Vrain Valley School District on anything, but I can only speak with what we do in transportation.
Hello, I'm Leo Olivares. I work for Longmont Housing Authority. I'm a seniors resource specialist. Work out of the senior center. We serve people 55 and older.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate you. Glad you all came. My name is Shakita Yarbrough, and I'm City Council at Large.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saul Tapia Vega, and for those of you who don't know me or are more accustomed to seeing the fine folks to my left and to my right, I'll introduce myself again. My name is Saul Tapia Vega, and I represent the city of Lafayette, where I serve on the city council. Just thank you so much for having me here. This is an incredible conversation. This is something that is of vital importance to our business community and our economic development as well. So just thank you so much for inviting me and by extension the city of Lafayette. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Sean McCoy. I'm a Longmont City Councilman, but also a high school economics teacher and a future business leader, board director for the state of Colorado. So I work with a lot of career and technical students at the entry level.
Hi, everybody. Alejandra Beatty. I am president for the Boulder Area Labor Council and also co-chair of the self-sufficiency wage, short version, the minimum wage, the coalition that has been working last, now maybe 4 years, trying to raise wage for Boulder County. I'm also a union organizer for your Boulder County workers, and I might get a chance to slide some of that in as well, so just cover all bases.
Good evening. I'm Susie Hidalgo Ferry, Mayor Pro Tem to the City of Longmont.
Hello, welcome everybody. I'm Joan Peck, Mayor of Longmont.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm Diane Christ, Councilwoman representing Ward 1. I also work in the business community in Longmont. I'm a business development accountant.
So we're going to start with our questions, but for city council members, if you have additional questions as we have people answer these that you had already established, feel free to jump in. It should be a deep conversation so that you have a good understanding by the time you leave of what you were hoping to gain. Yeah. So we're going to start with Claudia. Claudia, can you tell me your experience as far as families who are earning minimum wage, what kinds of experiences they have? Particularly one of the things that I know we had looked at was this, two family, one adult, 2 kids families, which I think are a lot of the families that you work with.
Yes, so my experience with that has been that they have to be more like having 2 jobs, each of the parents. And at that point, it really minimizes the ability of taking care of their kids. And not only that, but just especially our youth. And that's why we have, I've experienced it with the youth, that they've struggled to be with both of their parents. And that's why it's more likely that they end up getting in a little trouble for being out and about and not having anything to do or anybody to really look into what they're doing. The other thing is, most families are living with other families. To be able to afford it, housing is a big thing, where it's 3 or sometimes more families living in a home to be able to afford it, and that has really impacted a lot of the families that I work with.
So, do you think what would be the impact if minimum wage was increased?
I think that would help a lot, at least to be able to have one full-time job and not having, different little, a full-time job and then a part-time. And that would give them more time to be with their kids and with their youth.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to go ahead and hand it over to Joanne. Joanne, I'm going to ask you the same questions. Can you share your experiences when you were earning minimum wage?
In 1967, I first started working for the phone company. I was clearing $50 every 2 weeks. I thought I was rich, but I was living at home, not having to pay electricity or gas or, food or anything like that. And I took a bus back and forth to work. I didn't have a problem with transportation because I didn't own a car. So for me at that time, I thought I was rich. As I got older and then got married, then we struggled more. And raising minimum wage has its good points and its downside. It's a balancing act.
What do you see as the good points and the bad points? What do you see as both sides of that?
Oh, the good points for raising minimum wage is it gives the people a little bit more breathing room, a little bit more leg room, especially once you have kids, because kids are expensive and it's hard to tell your child, no, we can't go to the swimming pool today because we have to put gas in the car. That's hard.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Thank you, Joanne. Leo, surprise, same two questions. From your perspective, can you share your experience with people who are earning minimum wage?
Yeah, so working with seniors, it's a slippery slope because folks that are 55 to 61, they can take early retirement at 62, but most folks wait until their retirement age. For most folks, it's probably 65. So the younger folks in our demographic, a lot of those folks rely on Medicaid and stuff. And why I say it's a slippery slope is that when they start making more money, a lot of times, yes, they're making more money, but they'll lose a benefit like Medicaid or something. So it's a little bit easier when folks hit retirement age because they'll get on Medicare, maybe Social Security benefits, but are working, and some of those folks work, some of the folks that are 65 and over work to supplement their Social Security income, but it's mainly probably our younger folks that can be impacted by making more money, by losing benefits, SNAP benefits, even with a lot of our folks 65 and over, they rely on the Medicare Savings Program, which state Medicaid pays their Medicare premium. Right now it's $185 a month. So sometimes when your income goes up, you lose that benefit and you have to pay your Medicare premium.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. I appreciate that. So, council member, yes, go ahead. Alejandra, same questions for you. Can you share your experience with folks who are earning minimum wage and what would be the impact to their lives?
Yeah, actually, the question I was going to ask about this data, is it adjusted for the new requirements around the loss of Medicaid benefits? The new requirements that say you have to work now, like 20 hours a week? I'm assuming no, because that was all very new, right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think that was pretty new.
Okay. All right, so we can assume a bunch of these are now crossed out because people actually do not qualify for these now. So now the benefits cliff is now something they get pushed off of.
Okay. Already.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Wait, will you please explain that further, because I don't know.
Oh, sorry, let's go ahead and I apologize, I probably should not take questions from the audience, but I think you raise a really good one around the benefits cliff.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So the concept of the benefits cliff is that once you get to a certain income, then you're no longer eligible for low-income programs, such as Medicaid or SNAP, which is food stamps, or any of these other programs that are there. What Sarah's data shows is that if you, for example, right now, if you're one working adult and you make $14.81 an hour, which is what the state minimum wage is, you are still eligible for LEAP, ACA insurance, and housing vouchers. But if all of a sudden you made $16.57 an hour, you would no longer be eligible for ACA insurance, as an example of this table. The idea being that at some point, as your income raises, that the cliff of your benefits, you go over the cliff and you no longer have the benefits that you may be relying on. Yeah.
That wasn't the point.
No, what Alejandro was trying to say was that there are now new federal regulations that actually, create probably more of these that would be ineligible. The cliff is even closer based on the changes in the federal government.
Yeah, so even more of these are now crossed off because apparently making hardly any money somehow means that you should no longer get support by our support system. But I digress. I'll like share my experience from having worked on this minimum wage campaign for now a couple of years. One of the things that I found surprising, I'm 55, so when I was growing up, we were saving our money for a little bit smaller things because college wasn't nearly as expensive. And one of the things that struck me from the stories that I heard was actually hearing from a lot of young people who are like, I am not trying to save money to buy music. I'm trying to save money for college. I'm trying to save money to help my family because we can't afford food. And that was something that really struck me to the heart. I like, wow, these are people that are trying to make day-to-day living work for them, and they can't. And they work. Many of them are now, and that was the other side of the story. I heard a lot of stories of people saying, I got to work 2 jobs, as Claudia was describing, both parents. And we've heard stories again and again from folks, that's why a lot of folks probably are not here right now, because they can't afford to take a couple hours off, because they need every dime that they can make. I think the other stories that struck me too was it wasn't, again, not young folks, it was people of color, often women, who describe they're just trying to make ends meet, and they can't afford to. I think that the other story I would tap into too is the tipped workers, so the restaurant workers. So a lot of times we would get sort of what we would call these myths of like, well, tipped workers make just tons of money. They make $40 an hour, so how could they possibly need any help? But once you started to hear their stories, well, you heard every once in a while I get a good night, and somebody's nice and tips me well. But a lot of times I get a lot of nights where they don't tip me very well. And I barely make minimum wage. So I've got some days it's good, most days not. And honestly, when you look at it, like how many of us are flocking to work at restaurants, if they really are that great at work, paid wages, all of us would be trying to work there. We're not. So most of those workers would tell us it's a very volatile job and it's a challenging place to be in, and they have a hard time also keeping up with their bills. So again and again, it was back to that story. I can't keep up with my bills despite working my butt off to make it happen.
So the second question, what do you think the impact to people's life would be if the minimum wage was increased?
Well, okay, so as somebody who really likes unions, in case you can't tell, like all of us, I picture a world where, like, if we all had good wages, the enjoyment that we would get out of life, the ability to work just 8 hours and to be able to enjoy our family, to be able to see our kids, and I want to see. I'm an advocate for increasing wages across the board, and I will remind, like, the economic study that was instituted by the consortium of cities. That economic study showed that the economy will improve because when we have better wages for all of us, we go spend that in our community. So to me, I see a place where we're not all struggling and where we don't have to worry about our neighbor suffering because they're able to pay their bills. It seems to me just one job should be enough and have the ability to pay my bills.
Thank you. So we have some more questions, but I want to take a break and see if council members have any questions that you have, particularly for our guest speakers, before I keep going.
Well, I think there's a certain amount of assumptions about how many hours are worked a week with folks with minimum wage. I think there's this idea that everybody's getting a nice 40-hour work week, and because of that, their employer recognizes that they need to get benefits and other things like that. But the reality That's not the case in most situations. People are getting much less than what would allow them to receive benefits. And we know that Boulder County's done a study about what it takes to actually live here without any of these services here. And, you know, I remember when I was on council the first time, it was $20 an hour, 40-hour work week, and a benefits from your employer to make that happen. And I think we need to make sure that we understand that most of these jobs, the reason why people are working as a second and a third job, right, is because they're not getting full 40-hour-a-week benefits from their employer. Otherwise, you know, there might be maybe a little bit different data that we'd be looking at.
Claudia, is that what you're seeing with the families?
Yes, a lot of what I've seen is where they're working a 40-hour job and just medical insurance is outrageous, you know, to have all their kids insured. Not only that, but then that's why they're seeking a second, you know, minimum wage job. And then at that point, it's like they're still having a hard time making it through. And that's where we have seen a lot of families, and most of our families that we work with struggle. A lot of them don't, and we can see the difference on every aspect. I mean, on everything. But the families that are really struggling, it's just even to get to our facility, to get to our family engagements that we have, you know, because they only have one car. By the time they go pick up kids from school or daycare to come to the family engagements that we have, it takes them double the time because they only have one vehicle, because that's all they can afford, you know, to gas it, to keep it up with, you know, just maintenance. And that's what we've seen a lot of.
Our folks, most of our folks probably don't work 40 hours. Like I said, most of the younger ones, several of them probably do, but the ones that are receiving retirement, most of them just work part-time. But I just wanted to add, one of the big things, before I did this, I worked in Denver with homeless people for 13 years. And I think one of the big things with wages is, or one of the big problems is the cost of housing. So I think that's one of our biggest, even with the senior center, there's just not enough affordable housing. And so, you know, you want wages to go up so people can afford housing. But then again, like with us, it kind of dings people sometimes and they lose benefits. It's a give and take thing. They might make more money, but they wind up losing money. So.
Hey, why don't you hang on to the microphone for 1 second, because I think I'll pivot a little bit here. One of the questions here, you just answered the advantages and the unintended consequences of a localized minimum wage. What do you think city government could do for folks if there was not an increase in the minimum wage that would help?
More of Section 8 vouchers would be huge. Longmont Housing Authority is doing project-based vouchers now. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. We have 2 properties that's all they are, which the units themselves are vouchered, not the individual, and their rent is 30% of their income, and that helps people tremendously. Housing choice vouchers, those are vouchers that belong to the individual, and you can live anywhere in the United States. They're transferable, but they're few and far between. So I think housing is crucial, affordable housing.
Helping to provide housing is important, particularly if there isn't an increase in the minimum wage. Did you have a follow-up?
As all of you have been speaking, I have questions rolling through my mind. Like Alejandra, I appreciate your input, but my questions that were coming to me are the people who said that they're saving for college and helping their families, etc. I think that there's got to be divisions. There's kind of gaps in the data. Are these high school kids still living at home? Are they so that they're not paying rent, they don't have a mortgage, an HOA, etc.? Or are they 20-year-olds, 20 to 30-year-olds living on their own, trying to make it? There are so many divisions or gaps in the data that I have a hard time getting my head around. Because I can honestly say that throughout all the decades I've lived, it's always been hard to figure out how are we going to go to school? How are we going to do this? It's always been that way. I would love to give everybody as much money as we could, but I'm not sure that all of the divisions need, when deciding what that minimum wage would be, how would we do that so that people are actually getting what they need? And I think that's what we're here to discuss. But all these questions keep going through my mind, like where exactly on the spectrum do the people fall? And
Yeah, so I'd hoped this weekend to renew and look at the economic study, but instead I had to work on supporting the AI legislation that is happening right now this weekend, and basically fighting the robot bosses. So I beg forgiveness, but if I recall from some of the economic study, the challenge even here in Longmont is the majority of the people, and Sarah, maybe she will be able to help us with this, the majority of the people who are making minimum wage are not young. So the problem is that, yes, you have young people who honestly probably are not making much more than minimum wage, but they are not the majority of the workers that we're talking about. We are talking about the folks that Claudia supports and the family. They may still be young, but they're not kids. Yeah, that they are not the kids. So the tricky part is that, yes, can we do something that is specific for kids? But if I remember correctly, the law doesn't allow us to separate them out, right? You can make an exception for the 18 and under. You can. It doesn't specify that, which, like, City of Boulder elected not to do that. The Boulder County also elected not to use that provision and applied it to everybody. But the challenge is, again, most of the workers that we are talking about impacting are people with families. And those are the ones.
Thank you. So a couple of things that I kind of what I heard from Claudia was, and I see this as I'm a teacher in a bilingual Title I school. So we have a large percentage of children who are receiving assistance, free reduced lunch, and we're seeing the same thing. What I've noticed is that they can't afford childcare. So some of the issues that we have, and then I circled public safety impact, because they're having to work multiple jobs. What we were finding over the years is that we had children who were being left home alone and having to navigate that and tapping into you all to get those supportive networks. So it's not really a question, but I was kind of thinking about, the public safety impacts and then how that impacts the community at large. So looking at that piece, the other one, and I think you two have already addressed that, so I'm going to leave that be.
Thanks. I'm going to turn it over to Joanne, because it looks like you wanted to add something there. Okay. What did you want to add?
What did I want to ask? Add. What I want to add is, and this is specific for St. Fern Valley School District Transportation Department, because we have a recruiting team. I'm on our recruiting team to recruit employees specifically for transportation. And what our director and our manager has done is allow bus drivers and even bus parents that work on the special ed buses to bring their children to the district if they need to when they're coming in, and then they will get them on the correct bus to go to school, because we know how hard it is for childcare and how expensive it is for childcare, and that has been a huge success for our single parents.
That's great. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it has worked really, really well. But they have to be, the parent has to make sure that that child is acting like they should, you know, at the base. And with the child has to stay with that parent, you know, for safety's sake, until they are on that bus. And the buses will also bring them back after school, back to the base to reconnect with the parent. And that has been a huge success.
I do believe we have a child care provider that'll join you for the business section. Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you know people who are looking for, seriously looking for work, transportation with St. Vernon Valley School District. And it is above minimum wage.
Good, I appreciate it. Go ahead, council member.
Thank you. I'm going to build off what Mayor Pro Tem said, which is a very important thing, childcare. It was brought up. It's something that through consortium of cities we've looked at, and it's unbelievably expensive. The one call I get the most when we're talking about minimum wage, of course, is housing. But the second one is the cost of childcare is just far too high, and it's not offset by lower wages, right? So I guess my question is, two-part question, really is, are we seeing this, Claudia, I'm kind of looking at you, I don't mean to, but I heard you say it, so are you seeing this, especially with like young families and families that, single-parent household? I've heard of families having to put one of the two parents' career on hold because the low wages do not offset the cost of childcare. Have you seen this? And then the second part of the question is kind of going back to that question of what can city government do for you. Is that what you would say is likely the best use of government to assist with childcare?
Yes, definitely. I go around schools for St. Vernon Valley School District, talking to youth and children, and just inviting them over to our center and just different events that we have for the city, just inviting everyone. And a lot of the youth would love to come to the youth center, but they can't because they have to take care of their little siblings. They have to take care of them, and because parents are working. I see a lot of that. And that is just, heartbreaking because they can't be enjoying being a youth because they have to help out also. And it's just daily I see that.
We have just about 5 minutes left in this portion of the conversation.
Okay. Go ahead to all the questions or just,
Right? I think we're all open now. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
All the
all right.
questions have been asked, so this is conversation time.
okay. So as an advocate for workers, one of the challenges I see too on the child care side is the workers themselves is the child care. So that's one of the places where I strongly advocate yes, this is exactly where we need government to stand in. You need to subsidize because these workers should also be able to make a living wage, but as wages go up, again, parents are trying to pay that wage and they face, oh, I may as well just stay home, and then the cycle continues. So we absolutely have to subsidize. European countries figured this out. Apparently we can't figure this out. But it's something that I think that people hear me say, well, yeah, we should figure out how to subsidize this, and for some reason they think that I'm joking, but I'm not. I think that there are plenty of small businesses that also need subsidy help. I just don't want to see it done on wages because it has a knockdown effect like it isn't helping the economy because those people then can't go out into spend in their economy because they have to keep it all at home. So if we get their wages improved, we get to improve the economy. But if we have businesses that can't figure this out, we figure out different ways. Somebody handed out this great list of all the rising costs for businesses. For the last 2 years, we've suggested again and again, yeah, Colorado legislators, look, there's a list for you. Go fix this. Businesses need help. Go fix this list. Instead, they attacked tipped wage credit instead. But look, there's a list.
Okay. Councilmember Yarbrough, yeah. She hasn't gotten to speak, and I think she's about our last speaker. Councilmember McCoy, did you also want to ask a question? Okay, very good.
All right.
Change.
I just want to say, I want everyone in the audience to really think about solutions, because that's why we're here. I mean, we can talk all day long, all night long to midnight, tomorrow morning, about what's not working. But the reason why we wanted this fishbowl is to hear the solutions or your ideas and your suggestions, like what you were saying. I mean, before you know it, I'm going to be on Medicaid. I'm 55 years old. You know what I'm saying? I work 2 jobs, single parent, need affordable housing. I'm there today. So I understand. But how can we find the solutions to support our families so that they can thrive in this city? That's what we need from you. That's what we need to hear from you. So we know that there are issues. We don't want kids to be at home by themselves babysitting kids. We don't want that. We want to make sure that they're at home doing their homework. I'm not going to say play video games, but, that they are as safe as they can be. And I know we're going to get to the business part. But I just wanted to remind everyone that we are here for resolve. And I know tonight when we walk out of here, we probably still won't have an answer. And so that's why we brought in Lafayette and making sure that we are sisters, surrounding cities, and we are all challenged with the same issues, right? And so let's work together. Let's not attack, not that anyone is, I'm just saying that because when businesses come up, I'm pretty sure they're going to be very passionate about minimum wage increases. And all the businesses that I talked to, they all said that they want their employees to have livable wages. Every business owner that I spoke to in the city of Longmont told me that. So let's come up with some solutions. It's the reason why a lot of people move to Longmont, because you all are so smart. You all are amazing. And I'm not just saying that. It's the truth. So I know that you all can come up with some solutions that we can work together as a city. Okay, I'm sorry I went over my 5 minutes.
Councilmember, before you go real quick, I want to catch our note takers. I heard 3 things. One was lobbying the legislature to create more business-friendly legislation based on the list that was created. 2 was continuing to provide affordable housing options. And 3 was potentially subsidizing childcare. Just want to make sure you caught those. Okay, thanks.
Well, it's been said that show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. And when we look at these things like what we've done with Christine Pacheco in creating a dashboard for affordable childcare, and when we look at what the mayor's been championing for years about transportation, all of those things are tying what you're doing every day, Leo. Those are those aspects of our community is where I think we are the strongest. But the problem is that when we can do all that we are trying to do right here, but to your point, how we are getting things changed at the national level, it seems to be an undermining of really good work, and people trying to use the limited resources that we have, and then even though we're making those work, and even though we're bringing a pretty decent number of people out of poverty and moving them in the right direction and supporting our business community, it's still just this constant rug being tugged out from underneath our feet. And that is difficult for businesses and for the workers and for just the general people that are trying to make things happen in a positive way for Longmont.
Thanks, Councilmember Kay. So it is time for us to switch. Was there anything from our guests that you wanted to say that you didn't get to say? Yeah.
It probably won't make a difference right now, but contact your congressional representatives to up the income limits on benefits, because that would help folks tremendously. You're talking, like, think for the Medicare Savings Program, it's $1,700 and something. And then if you're above that, you get kicked off and you have to pay your Medicare premium every month. So raising those limits would go a long way, even SNAP benefits, especially for families and seniors.
That's great. Our note takers catch that one. Okay, that's great. All right, I want you all to stay right here. Hi. If you are on the business panel, would you stand up and stretch? Shake it out a little bit. I would like for you to come on into the circle. For those of you who've been representing minimum wage, thank you, and you can take their seats. Yes. Yes. And if you don't mind staying, yes, a round of applause. That is a very, very, yes, I appreciate it. This is a very tough conversation. Hey, Joanne, would you go see Maria back here? Hey, Maria.
Yep.
Would you help Joanne with her
Yes, I will.
card? Thank you. I believe that's part of the Mentimeter. So, Kimberly, how are we doing on the Mentimeter? I should ask for an update.
You can have my seat.
Yeah, we can add a few more seats in here, too, because this group is a little bigger, I think. Yeah. Everybody scooch out.
Oh, just getting ready to run. Give my seat away. I just want to say while you all are talking and we're getting everything together, I just want you all to know, hello, that I don't know if you all know this. I've said this several times in many of our city council meetings that by 2050, the largest population will be 65 and older. The largest population will be 65 and older. So what Leo is talking about is very, very important. And second of all, are we as a society ready? Do we have the infrastructure for that? So I want you all to be thinking about that in the back of your minds, because we got a lot of work to do after we resolve this issue or challenge of minimum wage, childcare, affordable housing. Then we got to start working on the infrastructure for our 65 and older population. Just saying.
All right, Chiquita, hang on to that microphone for just a second. So I know this is already an uncomfortable conversation, but you guys could scoot back maybe 6 inches from each other. Yeah, let's widen the circle so that you don't have to be quite so shoulder to shoulder. There you go. Very good. And those of you who are standing up in the back, we now have some chairs for you if you'd like to come on in. All right, very good. And Kimberly, how are we doing on the Mentimeter?
Great on the last question, so you can just add other points or questions.
Okay, so there's your prompt for if you have ideas on what the city council could be doing, answering Shakita's question, please go ahead and put that in the Mentimeter at this time. Much appreciated. Okay, everybody take a big deep breath. Ready? I meant everyone. Here we go. Everyone in the room. One more time. And let it go. All right. We're ready for round 2 here. So I appreciate everyone being here. We're going to do another round of introductions. I would like to point out that for the first group of folks, our partners from Human Services and all of our nonprofits helped us to find people to be part of that first panel. For the second panel, it's our partners at the Longmont Downtown Development Authority and the Chamber of Commerce. So I see Kimberly's over there. Where's Scott? And there's Scott. Would you guys both raise your hands there? Thank you so much. A round of applause for you. This is not easy. We appreciate the partnership. All right, so we're going to do another round of introductions. Hi. Why don't you say who you are and what you're doing here? No, what's your business is.
Well, my name is Angelica Orozco. I'm the owner of Marta Martin Business Services, 623 Main Street. The business is for income tax preparation and bookkeeping.
I'm Councilwoman Diane Christ. I also am an accountant, so I appreciate your business. And I work with, as a business development accountant with businesses in town.
Hi, my name is Sarah Morgan. I own Martini's Bistro. I bought it 5 years ago. So the business itself, under the Martini's name, has been going for about 25 years. People know it under its previous name, Chrisars. And so in the community, we're looking at probably 45 years. So it's quite the legacy in Longmont, and I'm proud to represent it now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Hoover. I am the Government Affairs Director for the Colorado Restaurant Association. So the Colorado Restaurant Association, statewide member organization, 5,000 member restaurants across the state, 85% independently owned and operated.
Still the mayor, Joan Peck.
Mayor Pro Tem Susie Hidalgo Ferry.
Hi, my name is Amy May. I'm with Treehouse Learning. We're an early childhood education center in serving the Louisville Lafayette community. We're a second generation family owned business that my parents founded. We've been around for 28 years. We serve about 115 children and their families with a staff of about 35 people. Part of our vision of sustainability is we're committed to paying our staff a livable wage because we understand that children thrive when the adults and communities and systems around them are thriving. We have staff members who are entry level with no experience in education. We have staff members with master's degrees in education. We have a staff member who's over 80. And we have staff members who commute as far as Lac Bowie. So we really have a diverse group of staff members, and we love what we do. And also, we're a passionate, creative bunch, but it's a very tough industry in the childcare industry process nationally.
Sean McCoy, City Council.
Saul Tapia Vega, Lafayette City Council.
Shakita Yarbrough, City Council at Large.
I'm Nate Golter with Longmont Florist. I'm third generation. We've been around since 1969 in town. We have 25 employees, 15 FTEs. And yeah, that would, I guess first of all, too, I want to say two things. One, I was nervous for this conversation. Like, this is, I'm not a really political person. I'm not planting a flag. I'm not standing on a side. I just want to share kind of the perspectives of how this is going to affect our business. And then two, I'm grateful for the council for listening. I know talking to some other business owners in Niwot and other folks who feel like they were not really consulted or listened to, and whatever the council decides to do, and I recognize you're in a precarious position, I'm at least grateful that we got plenty of chances to be heard.
My name is Jessica Birmingham. I own Happy Day Plants on the corner of 5th and Main. We've been there for 4 years, and we're actually a nonprofit organization. We hire adults with disabilities and train them and do all sorts of things with other businesses in the community. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I heard someone in the last circle, I can't remember who said it, but I wrote it down and put a big square around it. She said, I'm an advocate for workers, and so am I. I don't think you'll find another business owner who's more of an advocate for his or her workers. So I'm super grateful to be sitting in the circle.
Good evening. My name is Isaac Olson. I am one of the owners of Miko Coffee Collective on Main Street in Longmont. I also represent 2 other communities. We have a coffee shop in Lafayette, Colorado. We also have another coffee shop and a restaurant in Frederick, Colorado. I'm also on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce for Lafayette, as well as on the committee for the Downtown Frederick Task Force. We are super excited to be here and just have a very kosher and calming conversation about how this would affect our town, as well as how it would affect us being residents within Longmont. I am a 9-year resident here in Longmont as well. And we're just very much appreciative of you guys sitting down and chatting with us.
Matthew Popkin, Longmont City Council.
Thanks. So as you can tell, Council, the industries that you had asked to be here, including restaurant and retail, service industries, childcare, folks that were in Lafayette as well. I think the Chamber and the DDA did a great job of pulling together the industries that you asked to be here. So thank you all so much for being here. So we're going to go ahead and start with the questions for businesses. This is the second section on the third page. And so I think some of this is a little, more soup and nuts around how does your business work. So these first couple of questions around how do employees move up in your organization? What kind of certifications or trainings do your employees need? And then the third piece, what are the unintended consequences of an increased minimum wage? So we'll kind of push those a little bit together, but I'd love to hear from our business folks first. Are there folks that are answering separate questions, or shall I just send the microphone back around again?
Yeah, so I was taking the first one, how do employees move up in the business, and we hire kind of in three main buckets: sales, delivery, and design. And it really depends on the employee. It depends on what they're looking for, what their goals are, and what their experience is. So we have a number of people. Our design manager, somebody who came to us 25 years ago with a little experience, started in design, but now she's our design manager. I've had people that we've hired as delivery drivers or entry-level flower processors who then moved into sales or then moved into design, and then that increase in experience comes with an increase in wage and all of that. So there's those opportunities in our business. We're also not a real big organization, so a lot of times it's dependent on what the opportunity in the business is matched with the ability and desire of that employee and what they're looking to do in the business. So there's definitely opportunities there. The three types of hires that I wanted to bring to the forefront here were, for us, my ideal delivery driver is like a semi-retired person who comes in and is working a couple of days a week, very professional and on time, but is able to contribute to us in that way. And it would be difficult for us to continue to hire. Let's say we took a more dramatic step in minimum wage, akin to the county. There's ways that we could reduce our delivery costs without raising our fee, because I just don't think that the appetite is there for our customers to pay a really high fee. So we could go to some of these more gig platforms where we're just paying per piece and paying contract drivers and not people that we're employing to kind of solve that issue. And then one would be another consideration too is we employ a number of high school students or college students, people with little experience but are looking to get into the flower industry. And those opportunities would probably diminish. Like it's sort of a risk to hire somebody with no experience and come in and train and put a lot of investment into that person to expect that they won't they're not going to be here all that long. But if our wages go too high on that type of person, we would really look to hire somebody with a lot more experience who can just start the job, know what they're doing, and do it efficiently from day one, rather than giving these opportunities to people without experience. We're talking to high school students for sure, but also people who are looking to switch careers or don't have experience, right, whose resumes aren't very long. Those are kind of considerations that I want. I feel like I'm rambling, sorry.
Who else wanted to answer that question?
So I've always been very proud of, I call them my restaurant babies. I get a new crop every couple of years, and they're my high schoolers. And I get them when they're 15, and they stay with me through high school. And then they go off to college, and luckily when college ends or is out on break is normally when they come home, and that's my busy season at the restaurant. And so they come back and they pick up a shift again. And these kids have started at busing and dishwashing, and then they work up to hosting and then food running. And then when they're over 18 and they can serve alcohol, then they go to serving. And if they want to go further, they can move into bartending, or they can go in back of the house and do kitchen. Now, I am a restaurant, and we are we're a tipped house, but I do not take the tip credit. We are a pooled house, and I'm a casual fine dining restaurant, which means I have an elevated menu price because we offer nicer things. If you've been into martinis, then you understand. If you haven't, please fix that. I cherish my restaurant babies. Oh my gosh, I love them so much, and I'm so ridiculously proud of them. And these kids are not making, I mean, yes, their hourly is minimum wage, but they only stay at minimum wage while they're training, which is normally only 2 weeks, and then they're a part of the tip pool. Now, they do have a graduation within the tip pool, so they're earning more depending on the position they're working at. Busser and hosting and dishwashing being the least amount. Food runner is then a little, definitely an increase, and then server being a great increase. Right now, my base level minimum wage employee is averaging $22 an hour already, and he's 15. He also has a lawn mowing and small engine repair business. His 2 older sisters have worked for me as well. I have all 3 siblings on the floor at some time, and I'm proud of them. The sisters, I have one being a food runner, and she's currently making $25 to $26 an hour with her tip pool. And then I have her older sister who is currently at Tulane and just home for the summer. She was making $40 an hour, and that was not just for the day. That average is over a week. I check everybody's hourly wages regularly. So being on the tip pool structure, we adopted that. So really it started with COVID. There's always been a very large discrepancy between back of the house and front of the house. Back of the house being cooks, especially, they are truly the workhorse of the restaurant industry. They are the workers that can easily put in 40 to 60 hours depending on the restaurant type, the concept. And the servers can, really, a server is a very emotionally taxing job, whereas kitchen is brutal and physically brutal. But the servers would come in for 20 hours a week, which truly I think mentally is full-time for a server. And then they would make just as much as that kitchen person that was doing 40 to 50 hours. COVID changed that. COVID allowed us to then spread tips among everybody equally. When that went away, the only way we could legally keep going to do that is to forego the tip credit. So even with the tip minimum wage offset that House Bill 1208 would allow us, it would still not help my pay structure. At that point, I would have to severely change my practices. I do have an internship program that's sanctioned through the National Restaurant Association. I have 7 interns, which out of my current 25 employees, that's almost 30% of my labor force in an internship program that is allowing them to work towards an associate's degree in culinary. And that is at no cost to them. They're not coming out with student loans. They're coming out with further education, and they're making money, a very livable wage, while they're doing it. So increasing the minimum wage base and then still taking in tips, it would completely change the business structure. Menu prices would drastically go up. And I can tell you in the past 5 years, my average sales revenue has not increased. But as you can see from this first page, you can see just even with our utilities alone, I've had a 30 to 40% increase in my utilities. I've had a 40% increase in my insurance. My food costs, we all know that. Just going to the grocery stores, restaurants, and buying wholesale really isn't that much cheaper. We've also seen a very significant increase with that. My average menu price has gone up 22%, but my per person menu price, or average per person average, has gone down to $55. So people are spending less, they're ordering less. My revenue is staying the same, but my costs are increasing. I've had to spend, I'm sorry, I've taken way more time than I expected.
I think you've answered 4 of the questions.
I'm so sorry. I am very passionate about this. I love my employees. So never, ever, especially with every single employer here, I know for a fact that we are not sitting in a room thinking, how can we pay these people less? We need to make more money. Because I guarantee you, I'm a single mom of 2 kids. My business cannot afford me. I live above my restaurant. That is the only way that is going to work. I do not have a second income in my house. And the only way to live off of my property is to somehow get a second income in my house to be able to afford housing. Our issues are obviously housing and how do we take care of our seniors. That is the standard, that's the gold star standard of a municipality, and we do have a great responsibility. But this would literally chop us off at the knees.
I want to speak. Okay. They say, what certifications of training do you need, do your employees need? In my business, I cannot pay minimum wage for my employees because I require they have to be bilingual, they have to know computer skills and friendly. I mean, there's a lot of things that I need. I hire people without experience, but it takes me a long time to train them because a minimum mistake in tax preparation can cost a lot of money on my business. So I try to keep the same people, even part-time after tax season, so I can continue with the same people. Because my business is only like 4 months of the year, and I have to straight all my income to the whole year. And it's the same thing like for landscapers. They work only the summer, so it's the same for them, or for people who work in construction. I mean, it's a lot of construction that you cannot do during the winter. So they earn some money during their season, but at the end, I mean, they're struggling with to do their payments and everything. I mean, I'm lucky that my father owned the building and said, hey, I don't have for the rent, can you wait for me? And it's the way that I've been living on it, you know, thanks to him. So that affect me a lot if I have to raise more my salaries. And it's not that I don't want to do it, but I mean, right now, it's, to me, it'd be impossible.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? So you said you don't employ people who make minimum wage. So what would happen if the minimum wage was increased? Would that affect your staff?
Yes, because I have to increase more their salary. So, yeah, so they can be at the level, the professional that I need.
Yeah, just to follow it, that's the concept of like compression, right? If, you know, minimum wage is now $20 or $25 and we had somebody who was making $25, well, you know, their experience and our obligation seems to be to pay them $35 an hour now, and then the whole cost structure. So the effect is more than just at that minimum wage level. It's everybody, and you know, we're not Google. We're not these massive corporations that have profits out the, you know, I mean, we're small businesses, and any dramatic increase in our costs has got to be passed on in pricing or some other efficiency. Like we just would have to change how we do things.
Most people think of early childhood education and assume, oh, it's just glorified babysitting. How hard can it be? Without realizing they don't have kids. Without realizing that just to walk through the door and to set foot in the classroom, our staff members have to go through a background check, fingerprints that they have to pay for. We reimburse them, and 18 to 26 hours of training. And this is state minimum standards. This past week, we just spent, we had a week-long professional development training, and we had a 28-hour training offered through the Early Childhood Council of Boulder County on supporting this collaborative approach called Touch Points. It's based on the Brazelton method, if any child care people in here. But it's all about creating really thriving partnerships and collaboration between teachers and staff. So the barrier to even set foot in the classroom is very, very, very high. So I think nationally, the average wage for a child care worker is something like $13 an hour, with a huge proportion making minimum wage. And this is, again, nationally. And the industry is overwhelmingly women and predominantly women of color. And there's a huge overrepresentation of single moms, and an industry that is not viewed with very high regards, you know, nationally and in our country in terms of how it's funded. So I just want to throw in, you know, what do we need? Just recognition that childcare is infrastructure, and on every level, that this is what allows our society to function, that it's more than just keeping children alive, but the nurturing and the development of our future citizens on every level. But at our center, our lowest paying staff member is a kitchen assistant, makes 20 an hour, and our lowest, child facing lowest paid staff member makes 21, and it goes all the way up to about 37 an hour. And so, you know, nationally, the childcare industry is really, really low paying sector, but in Boulder County, that's not the case, because the market demands more. Most people don't realize that you can kind of pick your two favorite things. So either low ratios, which is a primary driver of quality, a well-paid staff, which is the other primary driver of quality, or affordable childcare for parents. So you kind of pick your favorite two of those. It's a very tricky math. So the impact, even though our business and most of the childcare businesses in the county the demand is already paying well above minimum wage. Again, if you can get a job at a gas station where you don't even have to pass a drug test or background or any of these other things, and you can make the same level of wage that we're paying, where the amount of training, I mean, there's an additional 15 hours a year of mandatory state training. And then again, this is just to meet the minimum licensing requirements. And the minimum is not correlate to high quality child care and education. So it's really the compression effect and kind of compaction of what that does to sort of everywhere. You know, there's already such a shortage of childcare in the county, and increasing the minimum wage we foresee it having a lot of really unintended side effects and impacts. And again, you know, I've heard this echoed so many times. We could not do what we do without our staff. Our staff is absolutely incredible, and we recognize that everything that we offer in terms of the quality of childcare and experiential education is because of our staff. And you know, we also recognize that it's a really tricky situation that the council is in to do this, because in our industry, if turnover is really high, and that's a big problem, because the more, if you have a very low wage job, you're motivated to try to find a better wage job, and so you quit your job. And so it's very expensive for an industry like ours to find and retain and train new employees. And it's really bad for kids, because children develop in the context of relationships with trusted caregivers. And so when there's turnover, that has a really detrimental effect on their development. So it's a really tricky situation because turnover is really bad. So, low wages for this really critical part of our entire economy is a big problem. And also, the market has its own mechanisms too, and doing this on the back of small businesses is really tough. I mean, again, we're part of a directors group, and there are so many centers who are on the brink of closing because our profit margins are so small, and we now have to compete with the school district for 4-year-olds. We offer universal preschool, as do most other schools, if they want to stay in business. But now the school district, which is much larger and more vocal, has large union representation, which is really, really good. We now compete with them for staff, and so it's very tricky to offer, a benefits package that can attract staff. So it's I really recognize the challenge of the situation and just the many moving pieces. But the child care industry, this is not glorified babysitting. I mean, we are literally, the industry that is most actively involved in the future of our entire nation and world, and through what we're doing with our youngest citizens.
Can I just go back? Thank you. So I think I would like to speak a little bit more about the unintended consequences of minimum wage, especially for the restaurant and hospitality retail industry. And we were here to speak our truth, so I will be very kind about it. We, as myself and my partner, I worked probably over 70 hours last week. Yesterday was my second day off in almost 3 months. 3 of which actually I ended up in the hospital because I was working so hard to continue to provide for our employees. We have been cutting back every single expense that you can possibly imagine to be able to survive on the Main Street strip in Longmont. And of course, we're signed into a 6-year lease, 2 of which we have left. Some of the unintended consequences of what's been going on, not particularly just about minimum wage, but also about the increase in everything else. We started our lease at about $4,000 4 months ago, and we are now rounding $7,800 a month to be in that facility. That is due to increase in insurance rates. That's due to increase in triple net rates. We do not own our building. We lease. And one thing I want to make super, super clear is it is not just a conversation about raising minimum wage. It's a conversation about loosening the noose that has been happening to small business owners over the last 4 or 5 years of increased costs that certain individuals do not always or are capable of seeing on the P&L kind of side of things. Especially in the restaurant industry, food costs has skyrocketed. Cost of labor has skyrocketed in order to keep staff members. We have literally not seen a single decrease since, honestly, 2021. And so to add an additional increase to our livelihoods honestly terrifies us, because we're sitting here working our butts off to try to be able to provide for said individuals and also our own livelihoods. We have been open in Longmont for 4 years. This 3 months ago was the first time I was able to write myself a paycheck. That is how intense it has been. So I do just want to spread some light onto that and just try to understand it's not so much about raising the minimum wage. It is trying to figure out the entire story behind why we need to raise the minimum wage. And I think that is a huge issue that is not always discussed or talked about. And I think we could probably get into that last question here in just a little bit.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. While you've got the microphone, what could city government do if they were to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am all for the decrease of regulation against small businesses. For instance, I needed a new oven in our bakery, and it took almost 4 months for us to get a permit to get that oven in there. Now that is literally one outlet, $500 to attach to our panel. And literally it made me just not want to operate any longer because that 4 months of us being able to miss opportunities on scalability almost crushed us as a bakery, because we hit that point and then we needed to be able to make a move quickly, and it did not move fast at all. And so I know that has a lot to do with regulation. It has a lot to do with different items, but I do feel like there are some things that we can all discuss as individual business owners and city council members to try and promote our residents to be able to go and spend more money within our own businesses. Maybe it's a tax cut of, instead of the almost 9% in Longmont, but maybe it's a, hey, if you go and visit this small business, well, they get taxed less, you know? So you can come and spend your money at a local level instead of running to Walmart for a loaf of bread, you know? There's other ways. I have notes somewhere. But to be honest with you, it is the less regulation. It's talking to the landlords of, do they need to charge you that amount? Do they need to be passing along? Well, for instance, I know the building that we were in sold for $600,000 cash in 2020, right? That building is assessed at almost $1 million right now. And let me tell you what, the landlords aren't paying that cost, we are. And so that is a huge issue when it comes to the triple net costs and the different leasing that we have going on. But also, some solutions, education, to try to promote some of these individuals to move forward, not only working these base level jobs, but full transparency, we're a coffee shop, right? We train high schoolers how to pour barista stuff, and I have one professionally trained baker that we were able to pay just a little bit more to keep him on, but he's only making maybe $3 more than that high schooler, right? So that is also another huge issue that I feel like we can probably try to figure out and work together, but also I think the money might be better spent on some higher training. I mean, we're looking at especially the restaurant industry, and maybe not so much for Sarah, because, you know, you could be a career bartender or you can be a career server and really nail kind of what you're going on. But how many times do you hear that you have a career barista, or you have a career retail person. And so there's only certain levels as a business owner that we're allowed to be able to put our prices up. And I tell you what, I don't think anyone's going to pay $15 for a drip coffee. We sell a large drip coffee at $4.50, and we still get Google reviews all the time of they are the most expensive coffee shop in town. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous. And so there's this perception of generalized individuals and residents in this town of you know, what's what, who's who, right?
Isaac, can I ask you a question before we move on?
Yes.
One quick second, because I want to get to you, Jessica. Go ahead.
Can you tell us what the problems were with the permitting, why it took 4 months on that stove? Is there something we can do to make that better?
Before he answers that, I want to make sure our note takers caught some of the things that he said around promoting small businesses, around the permit process taking less time, around talking with landlords, maybe some sort of a tax decrease for local spending. Okay.
To be honest with you, in full transparency, I've even been talking with the LDDA about trying to get a liaison between some of these city affiliate programs and then also the city in itself, because to be honest with you, sometimes it feels like the city does not really communicate with some of these downtown organizations as well as we could. And so I believe probably in this scenario it got just caught up in paperwork. I had called the city permitting office multiple times within 2 months, and they said we'll get to it when we can. It's stuck in a pile. Honestly, probably every excuse under the sun as to why we couldn't figure out how to just push it through. My guess is treat every permit the same is probably the mentality. So if one comes in and you get 100 that come in, whose is more important, right? So we just bit our tongue and continued to operate, you know. But to be honest with you, it makes small businesses want to not be compliant with rules and regulations because it's so difficult to get there. And so we pride ourselves as a small business that we don't want to leave Longmont. We live here. We love the Longmont community. What Kimberly and the LDDA and the Chamber have done for this downtown is spectacular. I've seen it grow over the last 10 years, and we don't want it to diminish. The unfortunate reality is being part of other communities and other counties and having businesses in those facilities, those other areas are preparing their infrastructure and their buildings and their vacant spaces, and if this minimum wage does push through, because I feel like there's going to be a mass exodus of especially the retail, entertainment, and restaurant industry. Maybe not so much for everyone, but the ones that people want to go out and spend money with and have fun will probably no longer be.
So for everyone in the room, I want you to know that your council people are your liaisons. So if you're stuck somewhere, contact your council people. That's what we're here for. That's why we're sitting in this room right now. So keep that in mind.
Can I have a quick addition to that before, Jessica? Just on the permitting, and I'll give it.
We'll go to the hostess with the mostest, and you can.
In addition. Okay, thank you. I won't be wrong. In addition to Isaac's complaint about permitting, he's not alone. Red Cedar Bistro, Juniper Goods, Bestow are all small businesses on Main Street that got buried in their permitting and had to push their closing dates back 6 months to a year, which eats in and their operational costs to even just get a business started, which is very difficult. Longmont is not small business friendly, especially when it comes to building a new business. That needs to change if small business is going to come in.
Thank you for that.
Okay, we were assigned questions that we were supposed to answer, so I have a lot ready. So I wanted to make sure I can share it. Unintended consequences, I don't think anyone here wants to say it, but a lot of our businesses would just have to leave. And, I haven't been here, how many years? 55? But I've been here 4, and I've poured my heart into my business, and my family has made sacrifices, and I made a list kind of last week as I was getting ready for this of just like general happenings in my shop throughout the week. So 3 teachers called to ask if we could talk about doing field trips. We do lots of field trips in my shop. We started a new program for adults in the community to come and just have a hangout, 18 and over, because I found that after employment, social opportunities, that's the next biggest need. And so for 2 months in a row, I've had to add spots to that because the registration is filled up. It's free to come to. So that would no longer be there. I had a family come in who had just lost a child to buy a plant, and they wanted to have something in their house to remember that child. So just to think of those opportunities not being there for our community and for my employees. I have 2 new volunteers starting next week. I have a wait list of 14 people waiting to work at Happy Day Plants because there's just nothing in the community. Really, I shouldn't say nothing. There are other things now. I'm so grateful to provide opportunities for individuals that work at my shop. And so I can't imagine having to leave, but that's what would have to happen for my business to keep going and our mission to keep going as it is. We would not be able to stay where we are right now. So,
thank you. Yeah, I think we got one more that hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll turn it over to council for some questions.
Sorry, I'm just passing around a flyer real quick. There's enough for the council members. I'm sorry I didn't print it off enough for everyone. I apologize for that. Actually, we might have one extra. So, again, Nick Hoover with the Colorado Restaurant Association. I just want to say I wanted to speak after all of the local businesses spoke, but I'll just say these are the stories that we hear at the Restaurant Association every day. Every day I hear these types of stories, and what you have in front of you right now is there's a local family-owned neighborhood restaurant in the city of Denver that has gone through this process, that opened up their books to us and showed us what their costs are. Those are their costs over the last 2 years, the increases. 20% utility and rent. Labor costs and wages up 8%, credit card swipe fees up 5%, food and alcohol up 6%. Sales volume, after all that, down 4%. This particular restaurant has only been able to raise their menu prices by 15% because they fear that if they raise it by anything more, they will lose more customers. And they're already losing 4%. They are 3% in the red every month. They have not made money in 3 years. That motto at the top, Survive 25, that is the whole team's motto, not just the ownership. That is the whole team's motto, is Survive 25. They don't know how long they're going to be able to be open. That is, I just want to say that I'm not blaming one in particular thing as to why this is, but I'm giving you an idea. These are the costs that a lot of the people in this room have talked about that are hitting restaurants right now. And I too, an advocate mentioned earlier that they had to deal with the special session. I too had to be down at the Capitol over the weekend, and I can tell you that just today, another cost went up on restaurants. They took away the vendor fee. That's another cost that went up on every one of the retailers in this room. Just today. Hasn't been signed yet, but it will be. That happened just today. Next year, retail food establishment fees are going up 25%. Who knows what's going to happen with the cost of tariffs? That is what the industry is seeing right now. So I wanted to just add that in for your all's conversation, and thank you for letting me be here.
Can you just clarify what the vendor fee is for?
Sure, I've talked about it quite a bit over the last week. So for those of you who don't know what the vendor fee is a pot of money that businesses like restaurants and retail get to keep out of the sales tax that they collect in order to cover the cost of collecting and remitting sales tax. It is calculated at 4% of the sales tax that you collect with a cap of $1,000 a month that you can keep. If you make more than $1 million a month in revenue, you don't get to take the vendor fee. That got removed in 2019. So this is literally just for small and medium businesses. The largest guys it was already removed for, and it passed the last vote in the second chamber today.
To repeal it. I would like to point out that the city of Longmont still has its vendor fee.
You do?
Yes, we do.
Lafayette got rid of theirs. Sorry,
Poor guy. Totally called out. Sorry there. The other thing I would mention is that I can see Harold over there writing furiously. I'm sure he's checking into these permit issues. So thanks for bringing them to our attention. Our new assistant city manager started today. It's her first night meeting. Welcome to the city, Jen Uten. And she's got her first task. Yeah, I can see that. Yes, I can see that. So thanks for sharing that information. It's time for council. We have about 5 more minutes for council. What kinds of questions do you have? It was a lot of information, but I'd love to make sure you have an opportunity to ask some questions. Oh, Diane has one.
Thank you for sharing your experiences and your passion for what you do. What I'm hearing is that retention is very important to you. So I want to know, how is your business doing? And is it hard to find employees?
Open up that can of worms. So we rely off of very base level, entry level positions. And so I do have to tell you right now, there is an age group of, individuals that for some reason, I call them the COVID babies, where they lost a lot of their socialization in the high school era, right? So we're dealing with a lot of individuals right now from the age of 20 to probably late 20s that have every excuse under the sun as to why they don't want to do their job description. And when I tell you that, I mean, I am pleading with them to just serve coffee and pastries, and that's not the other baseline of cleaning or stocking or customer service or any of the above. So it is very difficult for my industry, I can't speak for others, to retain those individuals because it's not always a career path, and those that want to make it into a career path, we hold on so tight. It's not even funny where I'm paying one of our salaried managers $56,000 a year to keep her. And so it's one of those things where that is very difficult. What was the other question?
Well, how is your business doing? And also, is it about the people or is it about the money?
It is 100% about the people. We have literally been in the red every single year since 2021. I have taken out probably $100,000 worth of loans to be able to keep our business in operation. This past year, we paid over almost $80,000 back to a loan to be able to pay staff, to buy food, to continue community outreach. I don't know if any of you know much about Miko, but we pride ourselves in a safe and all-inclusive space. We pride ourselves in being able to help other small businesses that want to enter Longmont bypass the red tape and open an LLC, create your sales tax license documentation. We've helped, I think, in the last 4 years, 7 or 8 other businesses become operating brick and mortar businesses. And so we sacrifice our needs as business owners every single day for the needs of our employees, almost to the detriment of, on the books, we should have closed 2 years ago. Like, no joke. We should have been done, gone, worked a salaried position, run a hotel, something, but we are business owners, and we are strong, and we are passionate, and we want to participate in our community and create a better environment for those people that live here.
I'm so tremendously proud of my staff. If any of you have ever talked to me in the restaurant, if you look up at our reviews, we are known for our service. I'm proud of my employees. I have a very low turnover rate, which is rare in the restaurant industry. And really, we're comprised of a bunch of industry professionals, and I push that so often. This is not, for a lot of people, the restaurant industry, Miko, I mean, being a barista or what have you, is a, how did Haley put it? It's a supplemental job. And yes, a first step, but in my restaurant, it's not. A lot of us are parents, or we're going to school, or both, and it gives us a very flexible schedule to still make really good money. And we're very accommodating to one another. We have a very strong support system among us. Most of my staff has worked for me for years. However, I do occasionally have probably like 2 or 3 positions a year that I need to hire for. This past year, actually, the hiring staff has been great. People are literally clawing to get jobs. I just hired, just because he had great charisma, well-spoken, clearly very intelligent, working at Goodwill, was taking my donation, and I was like, hey, I need a server, and like, you have the persona for it. You want to come in and learn? And so he did. So I don't know if that helps humanize my business a little bit. No, my business is not profitable. I only made $8,000 last year myself. That was my income. I couldn't afford to take a paycheck. Like I said, I live above my restaurant. So I don't have to pay rent, thank God. My children stay with me because childcare is expensive. They go to school right around the corner at Central, so we have a really strong community. So that's how we're making it work. I should have closed. I have $90,000 out currently right now in operating loans just to keep it open and try to see if we can just kickstart it again. So it's a passion, it's a labor of love. It's very masochistic. We're not rolling money here. It's not about the money. It's not about it's about the money for my employees. I really do care for them, and I want to make sure their livelihoods. I'm a steward of their lives. If you take me out, you take 25 of my employees out, and that's what's terrifying to me. I'll survive. I'll figure it out. But to think of putting that stress and that hardship on the 25 people that I care so deeply for is unimaginable.
Actually, we're going to let Councilman Vega go.
Thank you. Okay. First off, I apologize. I'm about to ask a relatively difficult question, and every time I talk to minimum wage to businesses, this is a question that I lead with, and it's always a difficult question. I'm very empathetic to small businesses because I was a small business owner. Before being on council, I sat on the board of directors of a chamber of commerce, so I understand small businesses very, very well. And I understand that although it is about the people, it is about the workers, it is about the people you employ, ultimately it's also about the bottom line. That's kind of how businesses work for the most part. So what I want to ask is about the unintended consequences, and specifically where they start. The one thing that always troubles me about this particular conversation is that we speak of an increase in minimum wage as a non-numerical abstract concept, right? We don't actually look at it in terms of numbers. So I want to do the one thing that no one's done yet is to bring numbers into the conversation. And I'll give you one number, $15.70. It's a good metric to start with because it's 1 cent more than what the Boulder County Commissioners in 2024 made the minimum wage for the unincorporated Boulder County. It's, I think, 13 cents more than what the 2025 minimum wage is for the City of Boulder, and I believe it's about 90 cents more than what the state's minimum wage is now. $15.70, right? And the reason I bring that up is because it's also the metric that was used in the 2024 study that we all participated in regionally. So what I want to kind of bring up is the fact that a lot of businesses already pay more than this. Almost 70% of Longmont businesses pay more than that, and 85% of Lafayette businesses pay more than that, with only 6% saying they pay less. So my question really is, where do the unintended consequences start? Because I think for the most part, we've talked about an increase in minimum wage, and the number $25 an hour kind of gets thrown around, and it scares businesses. And again, I'm empathetic, and I understand that number is terrifying, right? Going from a $14 to $25 is a big jump. So if it's a 3% increase, if it's a 10% increase, if it's a 5% increase, if it's a 100% increase, I want to know, tangibly, where do the unintended consequences start for each and every one of your businesses?
Okay, so what dollar amount? You're asking what is the minimum wage dollar amount where it starts to affect your business?
I think that for my perspective, I think there's maybe 2 answers to that. One, it's always going to be a gradation, right? So if it's 90 cents next year, and then it's $1.80, and then it's $3.40, it's always going to be, all right, how many dozens of jobs did you lose at that point, and then hundreds of jobs, and then thousands of, so it's always going to be a gradation. I think it's also, when you look at the localized aspect of this, like we're competing with businesses in Frederick and Firestone and Berthoud, and all of those, and we're primarily a delivery company, so all of those companies can deliver to all of my customers, but my costs are going to go up more than theirs are. So when I have customers who are price shopping, it's going to be really obvious to them. And so really it's not so much at this level. It's the fact that I look around at my competition. And so any increase above what the state is already doing, and the state's already pegged to inflation, right, is going to be challenging for Longmont businesses. And, this is what businesses can do. What we would consider, what we're not considering now, is looking at ways to take operations outside of Longmont. We wouldn't, it's in our name. Like, we're not going to leave Longmont. But, one of the reasons that bouquets are so much cheaper at the grocery store, well, maybe even less so now because their costs have gone up quite a bit, is that most of those are designed in Ecuador and Colombia, boxed and shipped to their end location, and then at that end location, cut and put out, right? So somebody working there can make $100 an hour, whereas, our staff is making 4 or 5, something like that. So we would look to, any increase in cost, we would have to do one of two things: raise prices or find efficiency somewhere else. So we would look to move labor outside of Longmont, or by any way, or raise prices. And I'm, when you get to just my business raising prices, it's every business raising prices, and then you have this localized inflation. So yeah, it's a difficult question to answer, but I think honestly, any step above the state minimum wage is going to have some effect, right?
I do want to make sure, so we only have about 3 minutes left of this facilitation. I want to make sure that there aren't any other council members who have a question.
I don't really have a question, but what Shakita said earlier, I kind of want to put out. How can we work together as a city and small businesses? Because Longmont really is about local small businesses. That's what we've been saying forever. So what the city is trying, like for people who don't have a car, we have the Ride Longmont, and that's $2 a ride. But for people my age, it's $1 a ride, and for children. So that we don't want people to not be able to get around or not be able to buy a car. Don't buy one. We have an opportunity for you not to get rid of all those costs. We're building affordable housing. Developers don't want to. They just don't. For various reasons, I'm not against developers, but so the city is trying to fill that gap, and but we can't do it fast enough. So we already know, thank you for the permits. I also know that we're very understaffed, which is why you got to take them as they come in. So we can address that problem as well. What can you do? And that's what I would like you to think about. I was thinking about, can you close 1 day a week? Would that save you money? Do you have to be open 7 days a week? Probably, depending upon what your business is. I don't own a business, so I don't know. Anything that you can think about how we can work together, that's what we need. We need that cooperation and partnership with you. So tell us what the city can do better, which you already did. I'm sure there are more than one thing. And then help us. Tell us what you can do.
Okay, I'm going to limit you to a 2-word answer. 2 words. You got them? 2 words. 3? 3 words? Okay, 3 words. And we're going to have every business owner answer the mayor's question, and then we're going to close. 3 words. 3? Okay.
I'll give it to Sarah. 3 words.
Small business incentives.
Oh, you took mine.
Yeah, no, it's your turn.
Well, that was mine. Incentives. Yeah. I'll keep thinking because I know I have another one.
And now I got 2 microphones. Reduce interference, maybe. Reduce interference,
Red tape.
Yeah. Red tape and yeah, those 2 words.
Keep going that way.
Childcare credit and affordable housing.
Hey, that's close. That was close.
Mine's on childcare subsidies for in-employment childcare. keeping children with parents, letting them work and have. If I had one of your teachers, in my business, it'd be awesome.
I think everybody say everything, so.
Did you think of another one? Okay. All right. I really want to thank everybody for your time today. This has been so insightful. Council members, I hope that you were able to get the answers that you were looking for today. I know we'll bring this back at some point when Harold tells me to. So we'll see how this goes.
I just want to make sure that all the businesses and any other businesses that are in the room to respond or send an email with the question that Councilmember Saul Tapia Vega had mentioned, because that's very important, right? What's that breaking point? We would like to know that number. I think that's very important for us as well. So that means all the businesses that are in this room tonight, online, whatever, but especially in this fishbowl in circle, please send that information in to us. And
send it to Lafayette as well, please.
Well,
or would only leaving it where it is a cost of living increase every year?
So Councilmember Yarbrough just led me to a perfect piece on your agenda here. So I think we're finished with the Mentimeter. For those of you who submitted, thank you so much. We'll get that information to the council. At the bottom of your page 3, you'll see a couple things. Number 1, you can watch this entire conversation afterwards if you'd like to see it again on longmontpublicmedia.org/watch. You can see it again if you want to. And if you think of something after the meeting, if you'd like to answer council member's question, please email me the answer. My email is right here. I am prepared for hundreds of thousands of emails. I'm all ready. So please answer the question that he asked around where's that breaking point for your business. Do you have ideas for how the government can help in this particular situation? How do we balance it? How do we make sure that we're bringing solutions? If you have solutions or you'd like to offer the answer to the question of where's the breaking point, feel free. That's everybody in the room. Y'all have this thing. Feel free to email me. You can start tonight. Yeah. Okay. I just want to thank everybody. First of all, thanks to all of our participants in the Fishbowl. Can you give me a round of applause for everybody? And thanks to our audience. You guys did such a great job. I appreciate being able to give that safe space for everybody. And thank you for your interest in being here. So let me give a round of applause for you. Thank you to the staff, Longmont Public Media. Thank you. Yay. Awesome.
And Sandy, yay. Thank you, Sandy.
Well, thank you, Council. I really think that this shows the community that you're listening to them, that this is not an easy decision, and no matter what decision that you end up making, I feel like at least people have been heard. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks, everyone. Good night.